Cassandra Blake was a black woman in America, and she understood exactly what that meant, even on her day off. It meant her presence in certain spaces was always questioned, always measured. But today, she just wanted to breathe. As the chief of police for the city of Fairgrove, she'd spent the last 25 years diffusing crises, signing off on budgets, training officers, and calming down mayors. Her days were filled with tension, her nights often interrupted by dispatch. But this Saturday, it was hers. No uniform, no badge, just black joggers, a loose t-shirt, and a pair of worn sandals. Her hair tied in a bun. No makeup, no statement. Just a tired black woman looking for peace in her own neighborhood, a gated, middle-class community she'd called home for nearly a decade. She stepped through the pool gate, gave a polite nod to the lifeguard who recognized her, and settled into a lounge chair by the shallow end. The sun was warm, kids laughed. The world, for a brief moment, felt still, until a voice interrupted the calm. "Excuse me," came a man's voice, clipped and curious. "Do you live here?" Cassandra looked up. A tall white man stood over her, arms crossed, suspicion written all over his face. He didn't know who she was, not yet. He only saw a black woman sitting alone. And in that moment, he made the same mistake the world too often does. He assumed. Mitchell Crane had only lived in the neighborhood for 6 weeks, but he walked like he'd built the place himself. Polo shirt tucked crisp into pressed khaki shorts, HOA pamphlet poking out of his back pocket like a badge. He wasn't sweating, wasn't swimming, he was scanning, looking for someone to correct. "I just haven't seen you around," he added, as if that were evidence. Cassandra kept her voice even. "Well, I've been here nearly 10 years, 3 streets over, same house. My name's in the HOA directory." His brows lifted just slightly, a calculated disbelief. "You must keep a low profile." She offered a thin smile. "I try." But Mitchell didn't back down. He glanced around the pool like he expected backup. No one seemed to notice yet. The toddler splashed. The lifeguard scrolled through his phone, but Cassandra could feel the shift. The air had changed. "You have your key fob on you?" he asked, tilting his chin toward her bag. "In my tote," she said calmly, not moving. "Why?" "Well, we've had incidents, outsiders sneaking in. You understand why I have to ask?" No, she didn't understand. Because the only incident happening was this: a white man trying to assert ownership over a space he barely belonged to, interrogating a black woman who'd paid her dues in taxes, in service, in silence. Mitchell leaned in just enough to cast a shadow across her chair. "Look, we can do this the easy way. Just show the fob and we're good." Cassandra didn't flinch. "Do you ask every resident to prove they live here, or just the ones who don't look like you?" He blinked, caught off guard by her clarity. "That's not what this is about." "Then what's it about?" she asked, still seated, still calm. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I'm being challenged, not welcomed." He opened his mouth, but the words stalled, tripped on something between pride and doubt. She watched him struggle, watched him grasp for authority he didn't actually have, and then she added, cool and deliberate, "You know, it's funny. You came over here to enforce the rules, but I've been enforcing actual laws for over 2 decades. That stopped him, and before he could recover, the man in the lounge chair beside her looked up from his paperback and said, just loud enough, "Everything okay over there, Chief?" Mitchell blinked. "Chief?" Cassandra just leaned back in her chair and sipped her water. Ava Thompson had her phone in her hand, earbuds in, but she wasn't listening to music anymore. She was sitting cross-legged near the deep end, pretending to scroll, pretending not to look. But her gaze kept drifting back to the woman in the lounge chair and the man standing over her. She couldn't hear everything, but she didn't need to. Body language said enough. The woman calm, composed, confident. The man tense, puffed up, just close enough to be uncomfortable. Ava was 17, old enough to recognize a problem when she saw one. And this, whatever it was, wasn't just small talk. From his perch in the lifeguard chair, Ricky Nguyen noticed it too. At first, he'd brushed it off as another resident being nosy. It wasn't his job to referee neighbor drama. But then he saw the woman, the one he always nodded to on Saturdays, sit a little straighter, like she was choosing her words carefully. Ricky took one earbud out. Beside the shallow end, Carl Jennings turned another page in his paperback, but the words were a blur. He'd lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years and had seen more than his share of newcomers trying to play watchdog, but something about this one rubbed him the wrong way. Carl glanced over his sunglasses. The man was clearly trying to provoke her, and she wasn't having it. Good, Carl thought. Stand your ground, Miss Blake. Even the young mom with the toddler noticed something shift. She stepped a little closer to her child, not out of fear, but caution. Something in the air had changed, not loud, but heavy. Back at the pool's edge, Ava felt her thumb hover over the record button on her phone. Part of her wanted to document it just in case, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way the woman never raised her voice. Maybe it was the calm, the control. Ava had never seen anyone, especially a black woman, handle pressure like that. It was powerful. Later she would tell her friends, she didn't even flinch. She didn't shrink. She made him shrink. But for now, Ava just watched and listened and remembered. Because sometimes you don't have to be in the center of the moment to feel its weight. Sometimes being a witness is the first step to understanding your voice. For a long second, nobody moved. Mitchell Crane stood over Cassandra like a man waiting for a storm that wouldn't come. He delivered his ultimatum: show the key fob or deal with security. He expected resistance, or fear, or compliance. What he didn't expect was silence. Cassandra took a slow sip from her water bottle and looked up at him, her expression unreadable. Around them, the subtle energy shift had spread. Carl had lowered his book completely now. Ricky, from the lifeguard chair, was sitting forward, both earbuds out. Even Ava, by the edge of the pool, had stopped pretending to scroll. Mitchell tried again. I mean, if you really live here, there's no harm in just proving it. Cassandra exhaled softly, not in exasperation, but precision. Her voice stayed even. You didn't come over here to check rules, Mitchell. You came to check me. And now that you're not getting the reaction you expected, you're scrambling. His jaw twitched. I just care about safety. I've got a daughter. What if someone shady came in? Her eyes didn't waver. And you decided I looked the part. He paused. Too long. The silence wrapped around him like a weighted blanket. It was no longer just between them, it belonged to the entire pool. And then, with slow, practiced motion, Cassandra reached into her tote, not for her fob, but for a small black case. She opened it with both hands, turning it toward him. The badge caught sunlight like a flare. City of Fairgrove. Chief of Police. Cassandra J. Blake. Mitchell took a full step back. I believe you were saying something about rules, she said, cool as glass. His lips parted, searching for a comeback, but none arrived. He swallowed. I didn't realize. You weren't exactly announcing it. Should I have to? She asked. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Behind her, Carl finally spoke again, this time with a smirk. Told you she belonged. From the other side of the pool, Florence Godwin, a longtime neighbor, called out without standing. Need us to call Ken from the HOA, Cassandra? She waved her off gently. No need, Flo. Just a misunderstanding. Mitchell looked around and saw what he hadn't before. He wasn't the one holding power anymore. By the time Cassandra Blake returned home, the neighborhood had already started talking. It didn't happen with loud declarations or viral videos. No one yelled, no one recorded. But word moved through quiet group chats, forwarded texts, whispers shared over fences and folding chairs. Did you see what happened at the pool? The new guy tried to check the chief. She didn't even raise her voice. Cassandra stood in her kitchen, unwrapping a sandwich she didn't have the appetite to finish. Her phone buzzed against the counter, messages trickling in like a gentle tide. Carl, always respected how you carry yourself. Let me know if you need anything. Ricky, the lifeguard. Hey, Chief, sorry I didn't step in earlier, just wasn't sure, but I got your back. Each message carried its own small weight. They didn't change what happened, but they softened the edges. Cassandra didn't need validation. Not from them, not from Mitchell Crane. But it meant something to know people had seen the moment for what it was, and chose, even in hindsight, to stand on the right side of it. That evening, a quiet knock came at the door. Florence Godwin stood there, still in her pool hat, holding a container of pasta salad. No speech. Just figured you could use a break from cooking. Cassandra smiled and thanked her, the warmth of community folding gently around her shoulders. Later, she sat on the couch, the lights low, rereading the texts. There was one from Ava, the teenage girl by the pool, short but powerful. Ava, you didn't just stand your ground. You stood for all of us. Thank you. Cassandra read it twice. It wasn't the incident that lingered, it was the silence after, the way people looked at her now. Not with fear, not with pity, but with recognition. Respect that had always been earned but was finally being seen. She didn't want to be a symbol. She didn't want to be the lesson anyone learned from. But maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. Not just in her favor, but in everyone's. Because sometimes, you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, the ripple starts when you don't flinch. The next morning, Cassandra rose before the sun. The neighborhood was still cloaked in early light quiet, cool, unbothered. Sprinklers clicked on in rhythmic bursts. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once, then settled. This was her favorite time of day. No uniforms, no meetings, just sneakers, soft pavement, and breath. She walked the familiar loop past rows of stucco homes and well-trimmed hedges, letting the tension from the day before dissolve into the rhythm of her stride. When she reached the community clubhouse, something caught her eye on the bulletin board. A freshly printed flyer had been taped to the glass. Bold black letters at the top read, "Know Your Neighbors." Below it was a photo Cassandra, in uniform, from an HOA safety event 2 years back. She was shaking hands with a city councilman, smiling in full command of her role. Beneath the image, someone had written in pen, "To the man who asked her to leave, maybe read the newsletter next time." Cassandra stared at it for a moment, lips curling into something between a sigh and a smirk. Not out of arrogance, not even satisfaction, but something quieter. Truth. She didn't take a photo, didn't text it to anyone. She simply looked, then kept walking. As she rounded the corner, a teenage girl jogged past on the sidewalk, ponytail bouncing, earbuds in. She slowed for half a second, pulling one out. "Hey," the girl said, a little breathless, a little shy. "You're the police chief, right?" Cassandra nodded. "That's me. You were awesome yesterday, just wanted to say that." Cassandra offered a soft smile. "Thanks. But standing your ground shouldn't have to be awesome. It should be normal." The girl nodded thoughtfully, then kept jogging. Cassandra stood for a moment, watching the sunlight stretch longer over the sidewalk. Not everything needed applause. Not every moment needed attention. But this quiet shift felt like something real. She kept walking. The neighborhood looked the same, but somehow it didn't feel the same. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of change. Back home, Cassandra stood in the kitchen, stirring her coffee slowly as sunlight crept across the countertops. The air was still. Peaceful, yes, but not empty. There was a weight in the stillness, a memory forming behind her eyes. She sat down on the edge of the couch and let her mind drift not to the pool, not to Mitchell, but to the years before the badge, and even some after. She remembered a city council meeting, early in her career, when a male officer had introduced her as our diversity hire, with a grin he thought was charming. She remembered being mistaken for a clerk in her own department. She remembered the bank manager who asked to speak to her supervisor after she showed him her credentials. But she also remembered what she did in those moments. Smiled, nodded, took the path of least resistance. Not because she was weak, but because survival for women like her often meant choosing battles with care. "You can't always fight every moment," she had once told a younger recruit. "Sometimes you have to outlast them." And she had. But yesterday had been different. Not louder, not more outrageous, just undeniable. And for once, people had seen it unfold raw, unrehearsed, and in full daylight. No one could walk away pretending it hadn't happened. Her phone buzzed. A new email. No subject line, no sender name. She opened it. "Chief Blake, I don't know you personally, but I saw what happened yesterday. My daughter saw it too. And I think she learned more in 10 minutes watching you than she has in a whole year of school. Thank you for showing us the difference between authority and grace." A neighbor Cassandra sat still, eyes on the screen. It wasn't the praise that moved her, it was the fact that someone had noticed the how, not just the what. That they saw the restraint, the discipline it takes not to match disrespect with fury. She folded the laptop closed, leaned back, and let herself breathe. Not everything had changed, but something had. And for the first time in a long while, she felt that quiet courage could be enough. The community meeting had been scheduled weeks ago before the incident, before the stairs, before the flyer on the bulletin board. It was meant to be a standard neighborhood safety update, the kind of event Cassandra had attended dozens of times as police chief. Usually routine, often dry. But this time the room was full. Fold-out chairs lined the community center hall, a mix of familiar faces and new ones. Some had come for crime statistics. Others, Cassandra knew, came because of the pool. She stood at the front without notes, without a slideshow, just a calm, composed presence. Her badge glinted under the fluorescence, but it wasn't what gave her power. Her voice did that on its own. "Before we talk about property lines and porch lights," she began, "I want to talk about something harder to measure, something that can't be fixed with a new lock." The room shifted, subtle, attentive. She let the silence settle before continuing. "Safety doesn't just come from fences. It comes from trust. And trust begins when people stop assuming the worst about their neighbors based on how they look, or what they wear, or how unfamiliar they seem." In the back row, Mitchell Crane sat stiffly. Cassandra noticed him but didn't let her gaze linger. "Bias isn't always loud," she continued. "Sometimes it's a quiet glance, a question wrapped in concern, a rule suddenly remembered when the wrong person walks by." Murmurs spread like ripples on a pond. No one interrupted. "I've worn this badge for over 20 years, she said, "but I don't lead with it. Because real leadership doesn't come from authority, it comes from how we show up when no one's watching." Mitchell's posture changed, slightly. He wasn't squirming, but he was listening. "I'm not here to shame anyone," Cassandra added. "I'm here to ask this community to do better, to see each other fully, not just conveniently." Applause didn't erupt. That wasn't her aim. But the silence that followed was different, heavier, fuller. It carried understanding. Afterward, a few neighbors came up to shake her hand. Some just nodded respectfully as they passed. Mitchell didn't approach. But before leaving, he paused at the doorway and met her eyes. For the first time, he didn't look defensive. He looked reflective. And that, Cassandra thought, might be enough for now. Mitchell Crane sat in his car long after the meeting had ended. The engine was off, the air still, the echo of Cassandra Blake's words looping in his head. "Bias isn't always loud." That line had landed harder than he expected. He hadn't planned to attend the meeting. Not after the pool, not after the whispers that seemed to trail behind him on every sidewalk stroll. But guilt has a strange way of driving a man to places his pride wouldn't. He hadn't said anything, just sat there, arms crossed, jaw set, trying not to look as defensive as he felt. Now, alone in the quiet, the shame came creeping in. He replayed the moment at the pool, frame by frame, the way he stood over her, the way he demanded proof, the way her calm unsettled him. And the worst part? He'd convinced himself he was doing the right thing, looking out for the community. But the truth was uglier. He'd made a snap judgment, not based on behavior, not based on facts, based on a feeling, a gut reaction formed long before he ever met Cassandra Blake. She hadn't humiliated him. She could have. Instead, she let him unravel himself. That was the part he couldn't shake. Mitchell wasn't used to being wrong in public. He was used to control, to confidence. But none of that held up under the weight of the mirror she'd placed in front of him. The next day, he walked the block slower than usual. People didn't glare, they didn't avoid him. But they didn't wave like before either. And maybe that was fair. Mid-morning, he found himself standing in front of Cassandra's house. He didn't knock right away. He almost didn't knock at all. But then the door opened before his knuckles reached it. Cassandra stood there, expression neutral. "I didn't come for forgiveness," Mitchell said, voice low. "I came because I needed to say, I was wrong." She studied him. No rush to respond, no soft landing offered. "I know I've got work to do," he added. "I just wanted to start somewhere." Cassandra nodded once. Not cold, not warm, just real. "Then start by listening. Not to respond, but to learn." He swallowed. "I can do that." She didn't invite him in, but she didn't close the door either. And for Mitchell Crane, that was more grace than he expected, and more than he deserved. The neighborhood barbecue was an annual tradition, but this year, it felt different. Not because of the food, it was still potluck style, full of pasta salads and overcooked hot dogs. Not because of the weather, it was the same golden California warmth as always. It was different because people showed up different. Cassandra arrived quietly, as always, in a simple sundress and flat sandals, her badge left at home, where it belonged. She brought a cooler of sparkling water and a fruit tray, greeted neighbors with nods and soft smiles. No one made a big deal of it, but they noticed. Mitchell Crane was already there, helping unfold chairs near the pool deck. He didn't avoid her, didn't try too hard either. Just offered a small wave as she passed. It was enough. Kids played in the shallow end, squealing as water balloons flew overhead. Music drifted from a Bluetooth speaker near the grill. People mingled not in cliques but openly. Something had loosened since the meeting. The tightness that had once pulsed under smiles was softening. Ava stood near the dessert table, balancing a paper plate and eyeing Cassandra nervously. When their eyes met, Cassandra gave her a small nod permission, encouragement, something unspoken but real. Ava lit up. Later, the HOA president made a brief toast. Nothing dramatic, just gratitude for community and safety. But then he added something that caught everyone's attention. And special thanks to those who remind us what true leadership looks like. Quiet, steady, and grounded. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. After the toast, Cassandra found a chair by the edge of the pool and sat down, sunglasses on, her plate half full. She watched the people around her talking, laughing, eating together. No speeches, no stares, just presence. And that was the point. Real change didn't always come in a headline or a viral clip. Sometimes it was in the way people carried themselves after, the way they looked each other in the eye, the way they stayed. From across the pool, a little boy cannonballed into the deep end, water spraying in all directions. Cassandra smiled. She didn't need applause. She didn't need to prove anything. She had already done what mattered. She had stood still, firm, calm, visible, and let the truth ripple outward. In life, dignity isn't something we earn through loud words or grand gestures. It's something we uphold in how we carry ourselves when no one expects it. Cassandra Blake's story reminds us that true strength often speaks in calm tones, not raised voices. Her quiet refusal to shrink in the face of prejudice teaches a lesson many of us have learned over time, that we don't always need to fight to be seen, but we must never let ourselves be erased. As we age, we understand more clearly that change doesn't always come in revolutions. It arrives in small, steady ripples, in respectful conversations, in the courage to speak when it matters, and in the wisdom to stay silent when that speaks louder. This story is not just about a woman defending her place. It's about all of us choosing presence over pride, grace over ego. Because in a world quick to judge and slow to listen, being grounded in who you are is a legacy worth leaving. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.